I've been here in the past few days.
Howdy. I don't think I got your name. What was your name?
Doc Masters.
Doc Masters. Nice to meet you there, Doc.
I'm a senior for Shift 1.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, most of the time you find me hanging with Maxwell trying to play interceptor for all the people running to her for the tiny stuff.
That's the role.
Yeah. Speaking of small stuff, so Matthew Colby was caught yesterday. I'm sure you heard all about that. So Erin has done a lot of the more background work on this case, and as she does on a lot of the big cases. I'm thinking of approaching the chief about giving Erin a bonus for all the work she's been doing on these cases recently and all the court work she does because no one else will. And just wondering what you think about that.
I think Erin is the only capable detective in the police department right now. And she needs to be supported beyond just monetary because money only helps so much.
Yeah.
I do want to
I've been
express
coming around to help her out. I turn up at her court cases whenever I can. So if she needs bounce ideas off someone, I'm there.
I did
as
see
well as beforehand.
I did see you there at that last one. I will say that I'm pretty triggered about that last court case. I'll let you know since, so, you know, I only said so much at the time because we were in the middle of court, but I am kind of getting increasingly annoyed watching LSPD pick up the pieces every time. It's been a pattern for 3 months. Whether it's the Hydra case way back when, or even most recently, that the excuse is that the BCSO officer was in ICU. But the thing is, as a consequence, Erin had to remove 2 interrogation tapes. I am actually genuinely in shock that
I'm surprised
Robin...
it weren't mistrolled.
Exactly that. Because I was shocked that Robin didn't push for a mistrial based on, like, who's to say there wasn't any exculpatory evidence? Yeah. So...
Yep, I was right there with you, and I warned Erin beforehand. Don't be surprised if he makes a move for that.
Yeah, and that would... Who's going to get egg on their face, right? Erin, right? Who's would have gotten all their time wasted? Erin. And
unfortunately, it ended up in time wasted.
Yep.
But I've actually been in talks with Justice Grayson, and there's this. So when this judicial powers stuff that's currently going through at the moment is amended, I'm sure you've had some words with her about it.
Yeah, we've been helping to review it and put our comments.
Yeah,
in.
but when it's amended, so it isn't based on case laws going with the verdict, they have got case law ready to push to actually make hot guns a.
Has anyone seen that case law?
I have not.
I'm curious because case law generally is a precedent set based on the results of that case, which would be.
I think it's the case we saw, Turner, is that
right.
I think what would happen is that Greyson pushed it to the justice, and the justice is going to create case law based on it. But I think I see what you're saying
PD,
is
though, right?
Yeah, so this is the problem currently. They can't push it because the legislation says that it's based on the verdict. So the verdict was not guilty. Therefore, the case law would state
we need to appeal that.
Yeah, that's the question. I've still got an appeal up for the verdict on the Hydra trial because of the overturned warrant, where I argue there's no legal system currently for it. And now we're probably 3 weeks on, and it's still not been touched by anyone in the DOJ, shock horror. And this is the issue.
So if case law is being built around the outcome of that case, I guess we'll have to see what the verbiage is, but it's most likely going to make life even harder for PD.
Well,
Yeah, well, it should revert it to the way that we were doing it beforehand, apparently, but
wait, but case law being a opposite to the ruling is not case law.
That's why it's going to be interesting, but that's why they want the judicial powers changed to amend the word verdict to something around it, like outcome or something slightly different they're aiming for, so that they don't have to base the case law on the actual verdict and more on the trial and what they believe it should have happened.
Okay.
That sounds weird.
It sounds like something that could be abused. I'm kind of hoping it won't be.
Yeah, but we don't operate it on hypotheticals. That's been a big part of why we've been fighting against the Marshall shit that they put through, because transparently only 2 out of the 6 justices are even active. And so they're pushing things of like, oh, surely no one's going to do this, even though we've seen that happens over the last 6 months, right?
True.
And while like 3 of us may on principle agree with something that we wrote down, let's say the 3 of us, we wrote something down, the rest of the city is interpreting it. And to say the city isn't going to have different interpretations of vague, generalized, things is like it does. That's not the case. I find it a little strange that the resolution, the correct vehicle for this resolution isn't being utilized. That correct resolution would be that you push a legislative update, right? That's what should happen. This isn't case law. Case law is like a judge makes a ruling in the affirmative, right? And then the case law describes why that affirmative will maintain going forward.
Yeah. So this came up in the discussion for the DOJ feel it would work better as a case law because it's been a precedent in the city for so many years rather than being forced through legislation. It'd be interesting to see if this case law gets knocked back somehow. It's all going to depend if this judicial powers thing goes through anyway. If that doesn't go through in 3 days, I'll probably be asking, can you just pull it into legislation?
No, I
instead?
start doing that already because this sounds backwards and they probably just don't realize it yet. I'm looking at the document. It says establishing case laws from court hearings where precedent is determined to be set as part of state's common law. And that's already in legislation. They can already make case law.
Yeah, I think they're removing the word verdict from that.
Okay, but even if they remove the word verdict, they're bastardizing the word case law then.
Yeah, but...
Did the justice tell you this?
Yeah, I was speaking with a couple of justices at the time.
Establishing case laws from court hearings where precedent is determined. Yeah, but they don't need verdict because the precedent is the verdict. Wait. Precedent. It's got the word pre in it.
Yeah, so I think the way they do it really the more you think about it, the more it sounds strange because it's basically, right, this is the verdict, but we as justices don't support that verdict. We're going to say the precedent is the reverse.
That is going to get... Okay, can you ask whoever spoke to you to have a chat with me? Because I'm going to be quite frank. I would probably contest that immediately on principle, right? And it's concerning to me There might be something missing here, so I'd like to get a understanding.
Who did he speak to?
Yeah.
Folkner and Grayson. I do admit it was at the end of a long day for them, so they've been like 8 hours meetings, so it could be they were a bit too cooked for the conversation. I misspoke,
Yeah.
but I can go over it again and try and get some
Yeah, it'd be good to get clarity.
clearing. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, what they should be telling you as justices is that you go and you push legislative change, right? Because otherwise you're kind of saying that, you know, the danger zone, right, is your how do I put this? You're altering legislation. If it's not through the affirmative, then there is no case law. Like, I don't know how you would make case law off that. I'm confused.
It feels like sliding legislation in via case law.
Yeah.
Without the backing.
Because it becomes case law because the entirety of the case determines all the circumstances that led to a judge determining why a certain ruling was the case. But if you're, like, making a non-affirmative change, that's not case law because you have no you're not really using the context. You're saying, I didn't like the verdict, so we're going to change it. That's not case law.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Tennessee versus Gardner, right? Like, Tennessee versus Gardner wasn't like, hey, we want to, like, they had to establish that Tennessee versus Gardner said, you know, the person that was being frisked was done so illicitly, like in the wrong way, and they said constitutionally it's because of X, Y, and Z, and as a consequence of that, you can no longer just frisk willy-nilly because someone's wearing a hoodie. You know what I mean? I don't remember the particular details, but it was based on the ruling, not based on, like, feelings, because that's what it ends up being. And case law also needs constitutional justification.
Yeah, definitely it's an interesting way they're thinking about going. I wanted it to be legislative anyway, rather than
Start cooking on the
but
legislative thing, and, you know, look, I want resolution of this myself as well. It's just, we got to do this the right way. Otherwise, you know, we're sort of bypassing the legislative process.
So let me just make sure I understand this, because maybe I'm not understanding things properly around here. Based on the ruling, the circumstances surrounding it, that should be the case law, right? Based on the verdict, essentially.
Yeah. So basically,
it can become case law. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what they want the case law to be is, if you're found with a gun that has casings at other crimes, then it is on you to prove your innocence, else the constructive possession makes you guilty of them crimes. Whereas the trial, the verdict was not guilty because you didn't manage to convince me that just because he had the gun, he had involvement in the crimes the gun came back.
I don't understand why. Does nobody understand how law works? Like, I'm so confused.
To make it if you're in possession of it, that's enough.
I hate these battles because I have to.
If you're in possession of it,
I have to understand it. I have to, like, have brain leakage.
Well, not guilty, but you're getting charged, right?
Well, you get charged for it, so it's assumed guilt, or it's assumed you were there. Basically, you can't force them to say they're guilty.
And that's what a justice said, purely based on possession.
Yes, so that's pretty much how the city operated anyway. If you've got a gun whose casings come back to other crimes, then unless you got proof you weren't involved in it, then you take the charge.
They needed they need, okay, there's two mechanisms like they can use. This is making me fucking like lose my mind here a little bit. They literally just need a case like in a, they
One of the million other cases we've pushed for hot guns.
literally, exactly. They a judge needs to say, oversee it and say, due to the like X and Y justification, because there was no affirmative defense, and because I believe one was necessary based on the time frame and based on the fact that constructively that weapon was in the suspect's possession, I am going to find him guilty. And then as a consequence of that judge creating his argument based on existing law, it becomes case law at that point.
Does
right?
that argument have to happen before the verdict, or can it happen after the verdict?
No, it has to be the verdict.
Yeah, it has to be part of the verdict
because
legislation currently.
Well, it has to be according to the definition of case law, right?
Yeah.
Because it's called case law because of the fact that an entire case was overseen and the conclusion that was made, and that conclusion, as with every case, needs the legislative and constitutional backing. And then when it becomes case law, in that what you're saying is, for all the reasons determining why this thing was guilty or it was not guilty, we're going to make this common law so that that ruling does not, that justification does not need to be remade on every subsequent similar case in the future. But because let me give you an example, right? Like, that then opens the Pandora's box that you see someone speeding at 100 miles an hour in a 35, right?
Mm-hmm.
And me as, you know, let's say Bino Bavez, right? The justice now says, you know, and you said they got a speeding ticket, right? And they bring it to traffic court. And now I'm like, well, you know, and my lower court says they're guilty, right? And then I come in and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to make case law that actually I think 135 is good enough. Case law now. I know that's kind of a ridiculous example, but in other words, I'm just saying it is with no backing to it. If you need to recreate that, I don't know.
I guess my understanding was that they could have a ruling and then they come back and essentially, I don't remember exactly what the verbiage was for, but essentially put out as to why they had that ruling based on that case.
Yeah,
that could still be taken into case law.
Yeah,
so
I think Grayson
I could rule guilty, and then I can put out, you know, again, I don't remember what the name is, but there's a name for it. You put out essentially a statement saying this is why I came to this verdict, and at that point it becomes case law.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Yes.
So he could do what he's saying then, right?
Yeah, maybe there's some context missing here. It's got to be based on the verdict. Yes.
It can't be the opposite of the verdict. The verdict has to. Case law has to support the verdict, which in this case would.
Hold on, let me look this up. There's no way they're trying to backdoor this, right?
The outcome of that case. Yeah, I was actually just going to talk to you about you know, how do we, what are the steps towards creating legislation or something around hot guns, because there needs to be some support for the PD there.
Agreed. And in fact, I think those conversations need to happen significantly more, right? I think it's helpful for everybody for things to have more clarity. I will say that there was a point in time where we were getting fought against because they wanted the judges to be able to utilize their opinion. But now it's kind of going in the opposite direction where justices I don't know. I'm going to, you know what? I agree. I think, Doc, you should cook something 1000%. And, equally, I'm going to try to get some clarity on this because on principle, this seems weird.
Yeah,
but there might be
know-
missing context. I want to say.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean-
could be.
Go for it.
I just wanted to point out as well, there is legislation going to be coming out in the near future in regards to contesting warrants as well.
That I am aware of,
Contesting
yeah.
warrants.
Yes, search warrants.
What's a current procedure?
The current procedure,
Wait, specifically search.
Am I
not,
tripping, chat?
arrest?
Specifically search.
Case
So
law by
search
definition
warrants,
requires
the current procedure
it to be
is
based on verdict.
going by legislation. There isn't one. Going by judges, they just throw it out on the day when they feel like.
What do you mean by
So-
throw it out?
So take the
A body of
Hydra
law developed by
incident.
decisions
The
and
judge
court
on the
rulings
day
instead of
that was
law that has
seeing the
been
trial
entered.
decided that the justice signed the warrant that lacked PC.
Why is this
Therefore,
being
they are throwing out
redefined?
the warrant and all evidence found with it.
Now I gotta look at everything because a
What?
body of law developed
Yeah,
by
But that
decisions
goes
and court
against the
rulings.
current legislation
instead of law
where
that's
it
been
says
entered
any
by a-
warrant signed by a
why is
appointed
this being
justice
redefined?
is deemed legal. Well, I think it's.
Oh my god! Now I gotta fucking comb this shit.
I've had this discussion with some of DOJ, and their argument is just because it's lawful doesn't mean we can't throw it out afterwards if we find it's not. They just deem it as a protection for the PD that they don't get sued for the raid.
Right. I mean, they're handing off the. I mean, as long as all the evidence is legitimate and truthful, then that judge is signing off on it being a good raid.
Yeah.
I think the liability falls on a judge at that point, as long as everything on that warrant is legitimate.
There's manners by which to solve this. Creating
but-
new vehicles that are
Okay, I
outside
thought
of the
it was for
scope
arrest warrant, so that's fine.
of power
a raid
is
As long as it's
not the
as long
move.
as they can't contest it in the moment, right? If there's a search warrant signed, you should
Yeah,
be
they
able to act
can't
on it.
contest it then and there, but they can, at the moment, a judge can just throw it out whilst the trial is ongoing if they wish.
They can currently.
They can, not per legislation, but that's what they're doing. It's happened in 3 or 4 trials now.
But if there's a signed warrant, that shouldn't be on the judge to throw out. That should be on the offense to call that out. They should
Yeah,
poke holes in that, no? And then at that point, once it gets thrown out, then it becomes.
yeah. So
What's your take on that, Nino? Actually, I'm
technically,
curious.
there's no procedure in legislation for a judge to throw out a warrant.
The context of this is actually very brain numbing. So
It was a shit warrant. It shouldn't have.
well,
Well, just
it
just
gets-
in
But there
general.
was
Let's-
other
well,
reasons why the
let's-
raid should have
Let's
went
not talk
ahead.
specifics. Let's just say in general.
well, the context is rather important. So there was a precedent set by then Judge, now Justice Weiss, in the court case with Mr. K versus then Senior Officer Ruby York. In said incident, a warrant was issued for Mr. K. That warrant was executed and things were found. And Judge Weiss ruled that the manner that the warrant was bad. However, he applied the good faith exception to make Mr. K guilty of the things that were found as a part of the warrant because the warrant was written and signed in good faith. Now, the good faith exception is something that, exists in other cities, New York, Boston, etc. But and I had spoken to him at the time, was a very dangerous thing to apply in San Andreas because of implications that may not have been in his immediate foresight. However,
Raid every house.
yes, exactly. But then what happened after that is Judge Hollow had a case, I believe it was the Hydra case, where the warrant was thrown out, question mark?
So There was
Sorry, I don't want to go too off what I'm saying.
There
Just
was,
so I
there was
lose...
actually a case before the Hydra case, which was the Cole Pred case.
Yes, yes.
Hallow was the one that threw out the warrant.
And Director Angel forced the signature.
Yeah, something like that. There was a
what
big
in the hell?
argument.
She screamed at Grayson and McNee and like coerced them as in a position of authority over their job to sign a warrant, which led to the raid of Kyle Pretzing. That got thrown out, but then the ruling was different. So there wasn't any case law around this. Now, it got worse in that then the Hydra case happened, and it's been a whole shit show. In other words, there's cases where warrants are being thrown out, other cases isn't. Sometimes good faith exception is getting applied, sometimes it isn't. And in each one of these cases are perfect times when case law should have been applied. They're big cases. There's reasons to rule one way or another. But as a consequence of the judiciary just not writing case law, these issues keep presenting themselves, right? So now that's the fuller answer. I think the reality of what needs to transpire is I think myself and Mumbles probably should sit down and actually work with law enforcement to fix this. But the bigger issue that is currently at play is the justices haven't actually been speaking to each other, the judges and justices, right? I think both Graysons and Folkner are starting to do that, but they're catching up. But then a PD needs to be interfacing with the mayors to push what they need, right? So like this hot gun thing, this is only happening because you, me, and Doc are talking, right? Command should be coming to us and being like, this is a problem in legislation, right? Or, these warrants are a problem, right? Just like civilians need to be coming to us and be like, this is a problem. But that's not happening, right?
Well,
we can do it for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to be kind of a liaison between the PD and the justices at the moment. I seem to have a decent enough relationship with them. That's how I've got this information. So I keep trying to keep in touch with them. Look, these are our issues. What are your issues? And I'm trying to make sure we get on the same page. I did say before we probably need a liaison with the mayor's office as well. But as you know, I was suggesting it be a member of command that does that because they have more information than what's available to myself or other officers.
Can we chat in person?
We definitely need someone that's got that.
It's rather confusing, especially from what I'm hearing.
Through or ideas for what
happened to the PD liaison position? Or the PIO position?
Nakota was treated like he didn't exist through Max's reign. I know this because that's what PD was telling me leading up to my getting into power. Since then, there has been some effort, but it's been very, very low effort.
Is there a council anymore?
No. Council's long gone.
That all went when the new government system came in.
I mean, it's a good point you're driving there, and I think it's not really that a liaison is a solution, but really any communication is required. Doc is one of the few that does keep that communication line open, right? But I think it's more of a grander issue outside of PD too, is that legislative change and whatever is how do I put this? People are lazy, like 99% of the city, right? It's easier to cry than to write a couple paragraphs.
It's also easier to take action.
All right, let me see what she said.
Talk to each other.
Okay.
That's
Gray-
another problem we have.
Grayson is currently on her way. So I did bring that question up. I like to get right to the source. You know what I mean? We can cut through all the bullshit to see if there is or isn't a concern.
There's two Graysons, right? Male and female.
Yeah, there's E and A. I don't remember which one's which. Wait, E is male. I don't.
E is male.
Yeah.
A is female.
Yeah, it's English versus American. There's English Grayson. They're both Grayson, but one's English spelled and one's American spelled, right?
That makes things very complicated.
No, it does. English spell gray with an E. We spell gray with an A, right?
Do we?
Yes. Wait, what? Yeah, we spell gray with an A. What do you mean, do we? What the hell?
I spelled gray however I'm feeling.
Really?
G-R-A-Y or G-R-E-Y. Yeah,
I must say I'm pretty bad at that as well.
It might be the city, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I spend so much time in America dealing with American systems.
I'll be honest, I still
end up flipping back and forth.
I don't know if it's gray or gray. I just write gray.
So Grayson replied, because I asked, why is it being redefined? And said, this is coming from recent events. We're listening to what the mayor and public are saying about the DOJ having the ability to pull triggers without opening avenues of conversation. It has been redefined to prevent our Department of Justice from being able to rule on the bench on a whim where they think they may be in the right, but there's no legislative backing it. No legislative backing.
Yeah.
The past verbiage mandated that it had to come from a verdict, that the case law was built, but there was no case law at present to back the verdict. Then it feels unethical and bad faith. There was, we can recognize the issue, fairly rule on a bench because no precedent is set, but then move forward with a case law to ensure such issues do not. Shotgun situation is a prime example. There's no current case law to determine case law. Huh?
Wait, wouldn't that be a
That doesn't make any sense, though. Rules in favor of defense because there's no law backing the call make the case law to prevent from happening in the future. Maybe there's something. I think there might be context missing. I feel like there's context missing here. And perhaps there might be confusion.
There,
yeah.
From what I'm reading from that, it's that they want this as a protection from bad faith rulings by judges. That's how that sounds. So, like, they think the Judge Grayson's ruling on the it was Fuge Hendricks case.
Yeah. I was there. But why? Yeah. Why? What made that ruling bad faith?
So I think I got a feeling she thinks it was a fuck you to the DOJ by Grayson and goes against all precedent previously set in the city.
Okay, but then, brother, that means that if that's happening, that means the case law would be done in bad faith and would be a political response, as opposed to what if that was truly the case, then there should be a ACR that's applied.
Possibly, yeah. I think what we need is maybe they don't, because the way Hotgun's been done, most of the times it doesn't actually end up in a trial. Maybe she can't find a case where the verdict was guilty.
Hey, how you doing, Grayson?
That would back the case.
American Grayson. Yeah,
Grayson with an A.
Yeah, Grayson with an A. Yep. We're in the Mission PD meeting room.
Okay, I'm on my way.
All right, easy. See you in a sec.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I'm not the best at documentations, proofreading, and all that. So
I am very pedantic for this very reason. I'm a strong believer that our structure needs to be very, very well defined, right?
I agree.
And if it's not very, very well defined, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about Turner, it's about the people that are going to take this in the future, who will be like, well, it says this, it means something else. So, hey.
Yep. I was looking at just while we're waiting for the justice there. I was looking at the what was it here? Powers and definitions of law enforcement officers. I was looking at some of the details about jurisdiction, and under sub authorities, there's one little difference between the two, and there's an and a or. Between
Yeah,
Los
I've
Santos and
noticed
Blaine
that.
County, which is a bit of a problem there.
Where?
So under sub authorities, under Los Santos and Blaine County, the LSPD must defer to BCSO deputies in matters of conflict and overlapping. And then if you look at Los Santos, it says a BCSO and the LSPD officers in matters of conflict or overlapping.
How the hell?
Kind of a big deal between the two.
Matters of conflict and overlapping jurisdiction.
Whereas if you look at Los Santos, it's or overlapping.
So LSPD additionally has more power. Well, yeah, because one requires
one requires both.
Both.
If you read it that way.
Yeah. Yep. That's so funny. That is funny. Oh my god. How you doing, Grayson? How you doing, Folkner?
Hi guys.
Right.
Howdy.
So
Okay.
Hey, just having talks to try and make sure we get everything through smoothly.
No,
as
of
we
course, I
can.
appreciate it.
okay, so a little bit of context. We were discussing a whole series of topics. The hot gun topic came up. The notion of case law got brought up, and then the language change that is in the document. And I got some context to it, but I want to hear directly from the primary source is like,
Sure.
yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
So actually, I'm gonna assume. So this is actually me operating in a. I think Nino's gonna probably like this idea than not. So give me a second to cook it, okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We
Take
are
your
of a
time.
mind that we really do not want justices or judges setting precedent on a bench on their own without having a conversation with the rest of the DOJ, especially when it comes to setting precedent. That is very important to have a collective, diverse group of minds coming together and figuring out if this is what's best. Case law.
Absolutely
So,
agreed.
Especially when it's not legislatively based. So Grayson, when he made the call for the hot gun, was not the hot gun, even though we've recognized it for years, isn't legislatively based, isn't common law based. He made the right call. But moving forward, we all know that we need to recognize hot guns. So while he did make the right call, we have to also have a mind of how to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. The past verbiage of the justice's power was that we had to base the case law off of a verdict, which I understood, but it set the understanding that we would have to make that case law from the bench on our own without it having already been established. Didn't really feel fair. Feels like it's operating in poor faith and understanding of what's going on. So we're thinking of changing it to what it is now, where it's going to be determined case by case basis with the judiciary. It's not just gonna be one justice who decides, even though it's not legislative based, if it's the right thing to do, then we should go forward with it and make the case law right then and there. It should be something that's brought back to the rest of the justices, and then we push forward together.
So I think the concern that kind of I get that draws up is like, if we use this hot gun example, so case law by definition is based on the verdict, right?
Right, but as currently written, if we were to make case law from Grayson's verdict, the case law would be that hot guns can't be charged.
Correct.
Correct. But that's
Or
Which
if
is
we were to
not
go
what
even
we
further
want.
back and talk about cases where we did recognize hot guns,
Yeah.
that there's no legislation to back those verdicts, and they are kind of hollow.
they should be though.
But there's nothing that should be. So what sets the precedent? Where does that turning point happen? And that's where this verbiage change is coming into play. We would recognize there's an error in the system. The person who's being, who the defense in this case would be, you know what? Okay, we recognize that you had not had the case law in place when this crime was committed, but moving forward, this will not be happening again.
So, if I could just cook for just a second,
Please.
From my standpoint, by the very definition of case law, is that it must have to do with the verdict and the full context of what transpired in a particular trial, right? And as
established by the outcome is the key factor there.
Yes, that includes the outcome. And it's both the context, the evidence, the circumstances of the trial, and then the verdict made by the judge. And for it to be anything else is against the definition of case law, because there would be no precedent as established in that court case. Now, while I understand that there is a lot of concern over like Grayson's Grayson with an E, his ruling, right? And we actually agree. We've been talking about getting some legislative change in place to cover some of this. I am still sort of left confused as to, because he could have made a ruling and stated that, you know what, it's not in law, but I can derive that it is guilty, and that an affirmative defense was needed because of the timeline that existed and because of constructive possession and and I'm going to rule him guilty. And from there, I'm now going to derive, put forward to the justices case law that says, you know what, every case going forward, if someone has X, Y, and Z in these circumstances, they will be found guilty. You know what I mean? To me, that's case law.
You've lost me completely.
Yeah.
I would have thought entirely the opposite, when there's nothing in case law, legislation, anything in our state or city that says we recognize hot guns. There is no grounds for that kind of a verdict.
Does constructive possession not exist in legislation?
Constructive possession does, yeah.
Yeah.
Vaguely in Wyoming versus Newton and Carroll versus United States.
There we go. So,
so you do in fact want justices to go and set precedent.
Yeah, 100%.
From the bench, without going back and having any kind of conversation with the rest of us.
Both.
I think what it is just because the decision was made on the bench doesn't automatically make it
case law.
Exactly.
I understand that, but you realize that's not the intention, though, right?
Yeah, but until you push something to case law, then it shouldn't be seen as a precedent. So you don't believe that the decision should... Well, you think Grayson made a decision that's backed by law, given there is nothing in place currently, but you feel, given the way things been previously, it's going against the grain. So there's nothing to stop you from... Instead of referring to that case as being, that's how we're doing it from now on, just go, that was wrong.
Yeah.
We'll continue going on how we previously had what we deemed to be common law that wasn't written down. And then when you get a trial which backs the way you want it to be, you push case law based on that.
Like the EMP case, right? Like I think it would have been perfectly I wasn't there, so there's going to be details I'm missing. There was an EMP gun that was utilized on Trig, and because that EMP gun, like, it didn't, I don't know, there was some things about it. If a judge went into deliberation and the judge was like, well, I looked up the schematics of an EMP gun and it's firing a projectile, and given the fact that it lines up with with, you know, what the definition of a class 2 is or a class 1 is and whatever. I'm going to rule this to be this. And this is my backing. This is how I've derived it out of existing legislation and made that ruling. It would only stand for that case. But then they would go to the justices and say, I believe this should be precedent.
The initiation of the case law. I understand your point, but I'm reiterating back again the intention of ruling against the grain with the intention of forming case law, which does not guarantee it. And I mean, there's no guarantee of case law. Obviously, that's left to the discretion of the justices.
True.
But I would think it's not operating in the best faith when things aren't, as we've said, and I'm sorry, Nino, excuse my PTSD here. We've had it thrown in our faces so many times when things aren't written down. I can only see this backfiring.
I don't think it should, and I would defend against that.
To go to what you said, Nathaniel could have ruled, that Future was guilty, and said, there's no basis for this, but I'm going to find you guilty and propose case law. Yes, he could have, but he didn't.
Agreed.
Hence why this language changes, because currently it says is when a verdict gets entered into case law. If his verdict was entered into case law, then hot guns would not stand, and we don't want to wait around for the next case.
We don't have to.
But this goes back to the conversation you and I had when I already said that we should go back to another case where hot guns were recognized, and that would have fixed the solution to current verdict issue. But we're also now, we came to the realization, though, through this discussion, Nino, that we saw that there was an issue with us ever having a verdict on recognizing hot guns, because while, yes, there was a common understanding for years that we recognized hot gun, there was nothing in legislation. There was nothing in common law.
Entirely agree. Peters, love you, but just pause for a second just so we don't have everybody weighing in. I agree with you. In fact, I was surprised by the ruling as well. But there is a missing component here that we should not be babysitting the police department. And that these are real issues that I see, and clearly you guys see. We need to be passing legislation for it, and that's the correct vehicle.
From our perspective, the reason for the language change is so that in times where, let's just say, another ruling like Grayson's happens, we can amend it and put in case law right away, as opposed to waiting for a case that would then go against his ruling to then make case law for it.
But it, instead of waiting for a case law, by definition, is always coming from a verdict of a court case.
Yes.
For case law, the implication of case law being derived from a non-affirmative,
it's not necessarily. It is a very common misunderstanding that it has to come from a verdict. It's from a judicial decision.
I agree with that.
From the outcome. It's saying it's coming entirely just from a verdict is kind of very elementary. It goes deeper than that.
I will agree with that, but my point is the affirmative, right? Like
I agree with, and that's why we're running into the same wall, because I'm trying to work in good faith of, well, okay, I have to recognize when things aren't in law yet.
So let's do it.
At the same time, trying to. What do you mean?
Yeah, like if something's not in law, right? The PD
what do you
should.
I'm trying to do here, Nino?
Well, no. But this is not the right vehicle. Is my point. Is that I recognize PD was pissed, right? And understandably, right? They were pissed at Grayson with an E, and what should have happened is they're like, instead of rah, fuck the DOJ and rah, fuck the law. They should literally just be proposing new legislation, right? That is the correct vehicle to utilize case law to resolve something. That's not case law at that point, right?
But what part of the new wording is the issue? That's not necessarily
true. Sorry, Marie.
No. What part of the new wording is the issue? Because right now the new wording says establishing case law from court hearings where precedent is determined to be set as part of the state's common law. What's the issue with that?
I think the issue is the implication that the case law would reflect a opposite conclusion, right? So, for example, right, like
is it not recognizing a flaw in the system and then adjusting accordingly?
Exactly.
No, that happens through legislation, and by definition would not be case law. And
Because
and to provide
you're getting
determine
stuck
case
on the
law.
verdict part of this. It's a judicial decision.
Yes.
Even if we see
Yeah,
there's
sure,
a flaw in the system, it's adapting and growing and developing.
Can I? Well, we can do a simple exercise to maybe better explain my position.
Can
Is-
I just cut in here for a sec?
Mhm.
So basically, the way I'm hearing is Nino thinks case law should be backed by the judge's decision at the time.
Yeah.
By entering the ability to go against it will. Now, I'm not saying you would do this, but in the future, it could give someone the ability to act in bad faith and use.
So can everything, Masters.
Yes, but this specifically will allow a justice to go against the decision that's always been upheld and make a new case law. So say hot guns was supported all this time. Grayson did make the decision everyone expected. There would be nothing to stop a justice going, you know what, I decided I don't want it that way. Let's make
Yes.
it now.
Yes, there is.
But you get the idea.
No,
This is-
but there is something to stop the Masters. It's called the other justices.
Yeah, but you get the idea.
So-
of what I'm
No,
talking
no, no. I
about.
don't
There's
get.
the-
No. I don't get the idea because there's other justices to stop that from happening.
How many justices are going to have to sign off
Well,
on?
whoa. I
common
think this
majority,
is going. I think
four
this
of
is
us.
going way
Four.
deeper than even
Okay.
what I'm implying. So if we go from the Constitution on upwards, right? Precedents set by justices will act as common law, right? And as such, in order for this this thing in the judicial powers to even hold any weight, it needs to encapsulate precedents set by justices as common law, right? A precedent comes out of a court case. Everything that is put forward in that court case is how that case law is derived, right? So now to fix it, right? And I recognize, I think, are we all in agreement that the ruling that Grayson with an E made was awkward, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And let's fix it. Let's put in legislation.
So
right?
I'm willing to, yes,
Right.
trust me. And we already have the case law drafted, but we were waiting because again, it was in the negative. So we were waiting for the judicial powers codified to be updated.
Yes.
So with the new verbiage, we would have the backing to put the case law into effect. However, if that is the case, if this is something that we want to entertain, I hear you.
Yeah.
Listen, you know me, I'm always willing to work with you.
Yeah.
I will go back and find another situation where hot guns were recognized and we will fix this problem.
Yes, I would,
However,
and that would be
hold
great.
on.
Yes.
I want it right now said to me, looking in my eyes, that this will not be thrown at me or the rest of the justices or my judges when somebody's trying to establish a case law in the future and they're operating in the best faith and they make a call on a stand that's not
Yo,
backed by
fat neck
legislation.
thing, the 15 months.
Yeah,
Well,
homie.
you're not going to hear that from me.
That's what I'm saying though, man.
Yeah,
like,
I
hello.
might. What? Oh, what the fuck? Hey, what's going on, Mumbles?
Oh
Hey, how
my
you doing?
God, Mumbles.
Jay, where the hell did you come from?
Yeah.
But do you
Where
see
did
my
you
point?
come
Do you
from?
understand my reservations right now?
I respectfully, I don't, only because I haven't been witness to it, right? But I will say that I very much understand that the DOJ gets a lot of unnecessary bullshit. And
I'm
a lot
really
of times,
trying to operate in the
Yeah.
best possible faith, what is in the best possible option for everyone here, and it never seems to be enough.
so do I.
and I'm very, very
welcome to our
frustrated.
job. You know
No,
what I mean?
I understand that. I mean, hell, I know there's a plethora of narratives happening behind our backs because no one's willing to have the conversation and be open. And I will go in every room and say, I'm
I
here to
brought
talk
you
to
here, right?
everybody.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not just talking about you, Nino.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is like a very common thing that's happening, and I'm worried about this exact situation that we're talking about this Uno reverse coming back at the DOJ.
Will never. I will tell you right now that I every single time you're going to hear an argument from me, I don't give a fuck about other people. They're too lazy, including PD. That does not bring problems my way and let me help fix it. In the same way that I know very much so that when a ruling is made, you have people fucking screaming in the court case and crying like a bunch of pussies, whether they're cops or not cops. and not listening to the explanations. I am very well aware of that, which is why their opinion matters very little to me when it comes to these discussions. I think as long as things are, being done, this is why I'm so pedantic about these little things, right? Because by being pedantic and us having a very clear, crystal clear foundation by which these legislative changes happen, people can come, cry, like throw all kinds of accusations, but you can tell them to suck a dick because, like, unless they can provide an argument for why it shouldn't be a certain way, they're just reacting on emotion. You know what I mean? And ain't nobody got time for that shit. You know what I mean?
I don't see this going a well way,
Yeah.
but this is the way that has been established. I am willing to entertain it.
If you find problems coming from the LSPD or my office when that kind of stuff happens, give me a ring and I'll chew them out myself.
Out of interest, would it be a possibility for, say, someone like myself to write up legislation to cover hot guns and push it through the 2 mayors? So
That's
that it's made
exactly it.
statewide?
Yes.
And
That's
then
fine. I'll be honest, hot gun feels more like a case law kind of situation, but I understand your point.
I agree with that even more.
This will protect you from having anything thrown in your face.
I appreciate you so much, Doc. That's very sweet. I don't need that kind of protection. I do have the powers of the DOJ behind me. I am able to stand on my 2 feet and know what my department can do. This is within our purview.
I want you guys to do it.
Backhanded narratives that keeps getting thrown at us that we're not doing what we should be. Come on, Nino.
I genuinely. I keep in mind, Grayson, like I'm like literally juggling like PD crying in one ear, criminals crying in another ear.
Do you know what? That I have the DOC on like the edge of a mutiny right now.
I believe
you. Are not alone.
No, I believe you. Trust me, I believe you. and I see how much time you spend on this shit while golf course is the purview of others. But look, it's gonna happen, right? People are gonna get pissed. People are gonna say shit. But at the end of the day, we're having these conversations and we're doing what the best we can.
I'm always willing to work with you. That's why I'm here. I'm willing to entertain it. I'm just saying there will come a day when I'm going to be very happy to tell you I told you so.
Yeah, but I know that's going to happen too, right? I can't say this is going to happen. Every court case, either the PD's crying or the other party's crying. It happens every time. There's never been a court case.
Usually they're running away at that point. But
yeah, they're running away. There's always going to be someone crying. How often do people sit there and say, can you explain the ruling so we can do better? How many times has the police department gotten a ruling outside of their favor and come to the mayor and said, hey, this is a problem. Can you help us resolve? Literally never. In the same vein, people will lose their court cases at criminals, right, and get found guilty, and they're like, rah, 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 rah. But how often do they come to me? Or how often are they in the cells and they feel like injustice was made? And how many times did they bring it to court? Very rarely, right? People want to eat people want to come to the potluck, eat the food, but they ain't bringing any fucking food with them.
Well,
so
can I jump in here? I did say that yesterday during the sheriff interview with this whole situation. Is there's a disconnect from people, and people would rather just bitch than actually find a solution. You were there during the interview, right? Where Nakota brought it up. And I said, did anybody go to the judge that made the ruling on that situation?
Mm-hmm.
I did reach out. I think I did talk to you specifically. I mean, I think.
By the way, I don't actually think Grayson with an E is in the wrong. But Nino's playing politics because this is insanity.
To do that, situation.
Like I want case law often, and then I really do, and it should be challenged. Where case law can and should be challenged.
They frisked someone before they
but we can't be breaking the system to make it happen.
And I talked to the judge that ruled on it, and she explained to me.
Use the system.
I think there's people.
The system exists for a reason.
I think there's people willing to learn and support you. Obviously, no one's perfect in this whole thing, but I think part of the thing is you got to focus on the positive and the things that people are willing to help you with, such as Nino. Okay. I mean, I'm more than happy to do my part to make sure that shit gets cut down as well. But I know
appreciate that. I can. And I'm not speaking of anyone personally in this room right now, because I think each of you, aside from Turner, I apologize, we've just met. Yeah. We've worked closely on several situations that has been very productive for the city. I'm not saying that to any individual. It's just been a very common theme. And not that I blame anyone out there from the very bad taste that my predecessors have left. And, you and I have had circles of conversations about this. I completely understand. I do just want a slight benefit of the doubt, especially when rulings are happening, that my judges are working in the best possible faith.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to also say one more thing is that nothing stops anyone from, like, why isn't the PD appealing the decision?
I don't know. I'm asking that same question. I'll be honest.
I'm appealing
And
one
before
way.
you
It's
say
been
double
sitting 3
jeopardy,
weeks.
yeah, it doesn't mean he gets thrown into prison. You can
Correct.
still have another ruling over the decision. You know what I mean? So, like, I feel like these vehicles exist, and I don't, for me, it's like, we shouldn't change the system. Some of these fucking lazy fucks need to start actually using it, right?
I
Like,
couldn't agree more. Not the lazy fucks part, but like I do understand that we have avenues in place that are not being utilized.
To respond to what you said earlier, Masters, about, you know, could you write up hot gun legislation proposed the Mumbles and Nino? Yes, you could, but then that is open to contest, and given the vast majority of criminals, you know,
with all
they can find a way to it.
But that's okay. That's how our system was designed, right?
Haven't you always been able to contest hot gun charges? Am I in thinking
Wait,
that? I
what
don't
is
know
he
why-
saying?
Like
Anyone
the hot gun
can
charges
contest
themselves, I
any
just mean
charge.
Yeah,
hot
I don't
gun
know why this
legislation
is-
would be contested.
I don't know why this has
No,
spiraled to the point it has.
I mean, you're
I think
looking
it's
at
because it was such a drastically against the grain
yeah,
call that I think took the rug out of all of our feet, out from under all of our feet.
Yeah.
So I think it's just something that we're addressing trying to address quickly because we see it's an issue, but also do it the right way.
Yeah.
So the reason this has blown up more than it generally would is the fact there was other evidence on the scene as well. So the guy's blood was where the DOC shot someone. So you had Future's blood as well as casings from the
I can't
gun in
believe I just
possession
heard
on the
that.
scene.
That's
And the
why we live in a
decision was
democracy.
basically, well, from a distance, you couldn't tell the difference between a brown and black top, so he's not guilty.
But blood alone has never been enough for, like, I understand that blood is next to the individual, but even from a PD standpoint, on the side,
But
like,
it was blood next to casings of the gun that
Right.
was fired.
Who's to
So
say he wasn't?
Let's look. Cool conversation. We're talking about a higher level right now, and I think it's. I want to keep the topic to that.
I agree.
The point you made there, Murray. Yes, you are not wrong. That if legislation was written, in which it opened the door for hot guns, and like rulings around it to exist, right? Yes, it could be contested. You're not wrong, and yes, there is a higher level of a criminal. But if that shit happens, that's a part of our system, right? Right, where we're democratically based.
Sure, but
a
also
lot of these
remember the
things
governor telling us that, you know, we are only uncontested when it comes to judicial matters in the same way that SAMA is uncontested when it comes to healthcare matters.
Yeah, no one's disagreeing with that. Oh, you're saying that's why it needs to be through judicial ruling. We're in agreement, right? The basis of this conversation is, you know, precedent set by justices will act as common law, and you know what we were discussing with the word changes and what might have taken place would have been against the Constitution, not by definition, right? So I want to see more case law, Grayson. I really do. I think it's a healthy thing.
You are not alone on that. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure,
Yeah.
again, it's going through proper channels and there's this discussion being had, and it's not just an understanding that's happening on a bench by a single justice.
No,
or a judge who has the impression that they can make that kind of a call.
No, I think in a idealistic sense, which I think is very reasonable, is that there is a court case, you know, certain, you know, things happen, and that judge is like, bruh, this looks like it should be setting precedent. A justice helps in deliberation, right? The ruling is made, and then y'all decide, hey, was the ruling in here going to set precedent and get turned into common law? Yes or no, right? Based on that case. And that's great. I want to see more of that. That's going to be amazing. And yes, there might be times where someone comes in, like, challenges it, right? But they have a legal avenue to do so. Reality is most people aren't going to use that legal avenue. You know? So
it seems we're all in agreement now. Unless you know, someone.
I'm
can
willing to
yeah.
entertain this, but
Yes.
again, I'm not convinced.
Let's do this. Let's revert the line. Let's revisit in 3 weeks. If at any point during those 3 weeks you get some pushback that's like against what we just discussed, I will be right side by side with you, knocking people down a peg, because not only is it in the Constitution, literally says precedents set by justices will act as common law. Not only is it backed in here, but this needs to happen to keep our system flowing. And if LSPD comes bitching at you guys against what the laws say, I will knock them down a peg, because if they don't understand our law, well then why the fuck are they operating in my county? So
That's all right. You know
yeah.
what? Fine. We'll revert it back to what it was previously.
All
That's
right,
fine by
easy.
Me.
Hold me to that. Like, literally send me an email. Like, if that shit's happening in a room, give me a call. I will fucking walk in there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'll walk out with the not so clean shoe, if you feel me.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's been resolved, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see, Peters.
Going forward, Grayson, you're going to be going to past cases and find one that matches.
We'll have to, unless we can get this appeal going forward fast, quickly.
Help me.
Even then, we don't know how that would rule.
Why don't you let me? If you want, I could work with Masters and we can get the legislation passed. Like, you know what I mean? If you want to do it that way.
I appreciate, again, though, this needs to be case law. That would feel
Fair
weird
enough.
anywhere else. I appreciate your intentions. I do, but I think we can all agree what this is coming from and where it should belong.
Yeah.
I'll speak with Erin because I did want to get this appealed anyway. If she doesn't want to do it, I'll just take it off her hands and make the appeal to the decision that was made.
Okay.
See if we can get a judicial ruling.
What Folkner said has me spinning.
The verdict, we'll be appealing the judicial decision, and then you can
because that's a political stance.
In the meantime, I do think, obviously, I know, Peters, please, for the love of God, keep, obviously pushing hotgun charges. They will be recognized, and if anything,
yeah, that's never stopped. I mean,
okay, I want to just make sure of that.
I'm not. Listen, I think from my perspective, like, I'm not against the ruling. I think there's.
I'm not either, by the way. I hope. Let me make that perfectly clear.
Like, I don't think it was bad, and I think you guys are catching the fucking butt end of a lot of the shit, as I witnessed yesterday, where it's like, well, there's all these fucking issues. Did you go to the person? Did you talk to the judge? Why was it ruled this way? If it was only his blood on scene, I mean, everybody should get their day in court, and obviously, the burden of proof is on us to prove that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's like this whole thing with everybody freaking out.
Didn't he plead guilty to the hot guns charges?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, regardless, I think people need to go and talk to whoever the ruling judge is versus being like, fuck it, we're not doing this. It's just people throwing fucking temper tantrums. And
it's my fear, and again, I understand the history of my department, but it very quickly turns into, oh, well, the DOJ is overstepping. Oh, the DOJ is doing power grabs. Oh, the DOJ is doing what they want without talking to us, and I'm very tired of that. And I'm doing everything in my capabilities.
But they literally,
to make
with
sure
all due
not,
respect, they did by changing it and not talking to us. I know that was a very
similar narrative that was happening with the recent legislation amendments that was being put forward, which we immediately went to the mayors and we're like, okay, how can we work on this? It's not just a PD thing. It's not just this case thing. It's just been a regurgitated narrative that I'm doing everything I can to clear the air.
That's never going away, Grayson.
I know it's not, but I'm doing the best
You're
gonna
be hit with it. I'm gonna get hit with it. Mumbles is gonna start seeing it eventually too. Like,
hello.
Yeah.
I do have a question about a court case that's coming up.
Okay.
Who's presiding? Because we can.
Let's make sure we're closed on this topic first, in case anyone wants to say it before.
Yeah. 3 weeks. I'll give you the 3 weeks. We'll change the verbiage back.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the understanding, is that should a case come to a judge and they find that that maybe there is something being argued that isn't backed by law, they should rule in the law that they want to be, not that the rule there is, and change
They
it
should
afterwards.
derive it. That's a key piece. They need to be able to derive it in their deliberation.
Okay.
So, and that's how the precedent, they need to be able to stand up there and be like, you know, while there is no clear cut based on this legislation, based on this writing of this law, we can derive this conclusion, right?
Right. So in
Okay.
this case, you're thinking along the lines of, say, legislation that contains constructive possession that's in legislation already, right? Based on such and such legislation, constructive possession is a thing. Drawing off this, we're carrying it to guns in someone's possession, and any past crimes linked to it are therefore their liability. That kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
No, I
Like,
understand. I understand. Again, though,
Right.
I understand also that most of our state does not have the same level of understanding of the law as those of us in this room, and they're not going to be able to put those pieces together.
that's not changing. We used to, back
I know
before.
it's not, but I'm trying to make it more
No.
accessible for the public to understand what the
Yeah.
intention is.
I'll talk to Michael.
gotta
He'll write a
want to
book.
care
You know what
about
I
that,
mean?
though,
With
too.
pictures and shit. You know, Constitution for Dummies or some shit. You know?
That, honestly, Michael would cook on that. What'd you say, Turner? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say they gotta want to be informed about it. Most people don't care until it pertains to them.
Hmm.
You'd be surprised. We've had a weird, like, new pop-ups of people who have a weird interest in politics, or I guess the legal system.
You know what would
okay.
be helpful, and actually to resolve that, is not only the reversion, but in that line, like maybe a section. This is the case law procedure. Ruling happens. Judge makes a ruling. Must detail out how they derive to that conclusion based on the constitutional legislative, you know, references. You know, the justice that conferred, right? And then it would be brought up to a panel of justices, you know, and whatever, you know, wherever you guys commune, and a decision is made whether it becomes precedent and turns into common law. You know what I mean? So it's like clear cut, obvious. So it doesn't, you know, open up the case where I think, Folkner, you may have referenced where Judge Bo decides to do some wild shit, and that's deemed common law. You know what I mean? Without an explanation.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as there's derivation and there's a justice backing it, it's constitutional. Outside of that, it's like, you know what I mean? It's just opening the door for an ACR, right?
Yeah. Cool. All right, we're good on that front. We'll talk about adding the process. Was there anything else? I'm
Peter,
so
so
sorry.
what was your
I
question?
have to run.
You can go. I can handle it.
Thank you, Murray. I'm so sorry, guys.
Why is the frost shit being entertained?
Well, I'm probably the only justice that can speak to that.
Right, but you can't speak that you can or can't speak to it.
Well, entertain in what way?
We LSPD's at will employment. There's no labor laws here. It's a civil case, and he's ultimately seeking, what he is seeking is, I believe, an overreach of the DOJ. Like, why is the DOJ entertaining the fact that he wants $100,000, then also an apology and also an unblacklist, which I don't think he was ever told that he was blacklisted. I think the DOJ stepping in and telling us who we can and can't hire and promote is an overreach, as well as the apology. I mean, if he wants to sue us on loss of wages, like, that's great, but I do think that it is an extreme overreach on what's going on.
I think this conversation is inappropriate, if I'm going to be honest.
Is it okay?
Is it because of me?
No, because I think we live in a representative democracy. If someone wants to sue because they think you said their penis is too small, let them sue. Let it go to court. Let a judge rule on it. It's only a civil matter. At the end of the day, we have to let the system cook instead of wonder whether or not
You know what?
things are
For Falconer,
not
I can't even
entertained.
talk about it with Falconer
Yeah,
politics. I just
so
realized that.
I think like, you know, shit's going to go to trial. Some things are going to be like, one way or another. That's what court is for, right?
I can say what the other justices and judges have said about it. This is not my opinion, for obvious reasons. We, like hot guns, we do not have a legislative or legal backing for us being at will. Now you could say, you know, if there is nothing, the default is at will.
Yep.
Oh shit!
But, you know,
This is good.
Hey, I'm going to be down there in
determination of
just
this
a little
case
bit, wrapping
could
up a DOJ combo.
and probably
Oh, okay, you're all
will
good,
be,
brother.
Easy.
you know,
Okay, just
at
let me know
least,
when
you
you're
know,
heading down, okay?
Yeah,
will do.
that.
All right,
I think
easy.
Bye-bye.
Talk in a
I
sec.
apologize. I didn't realize the optics of some of the shit in this, and I think discussing it with someone else is probably better as well.
There's another thing too, Peters, and the reason why I'm kind of like trying to shy away from this is like, I do have some belief that like when shit is up on the docket, we collectively, not just LSPD, but like in general, there's been a lot of like, yo, let me get the take of another justice that may end up having to sit in an appeal, right, down the line, or it's like pre-cooking before it's overheard, you know?
Yeah, understood.
We don't
There
even
is
know
also-
what Frost is bringing up, right?
Yeah, there is also the defamation side of it, which isn't tied to the, you know, employment stuff.
Oh, don't get me started on
Well,
that.
I mean,
I've been information
I
against.
I don't think we should be talking
True,
about
true,
it.
true. I'll say to
because-
you afterwards.
Yeah, I don't think. I think for
I
the sake
forgot
of.
Robin is saying.
Yep,
the,
that's why. We'll just
thingy.
leave it at
Yeah,
that.
That's right.
I didn't even fucking realize that until
No, you're good.
2 seconds ago. So
Yeah, I found out Arsehole's card down at the fucking lighthouse today. God knows what this fucking lawyer's up to.
Hope he drowned, to be honest.
God, I hope so. Then
Yeah.
again, I'll miss my arguments
Man.
on the docket.
Man, I wonder what happened over there.
yeah, me too.
Any other questions?
No,
while I'm
no,
here?
no.
No,
I don't. Does anyone else?
Yeah. No, I think this particular issue has been resolved. I will say though, Doc, since you I think are one of the only ones in the PD that seems to be thinking these things, please do. If you see problems, just observe what's happening in the PD, what they may need. Do not hesitate, and please, even if it's just like a line of concern, right, and you want us to cook on something, please, 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 by all means, because I know, like, y'all need things, but we're just not getting that communication, and we're mostly just hearing crying, and it's doing my head in, right?
Yeah, no problem. I'll keep my ear to the floor. Any problems, I'll try get
All right.
any legislation we can cooked up between us.
Like, if you need us to give like fine and time reductions in Los Santos County, depending on how many individuals are involved in a crime, that is even something that I'm willing to try out. You know what I mean?
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So, like, we have the ability to be extremely creative in San Andreas, and when it comes to this shit, and I don't think we've tried yet. You know what I mean?
Speaking of being creative, Mumbles, have you spoke to Nino about the vibe killer stuff?
Oh yeah, he's aware.
Run it back. Sorry, it's I think we
The
spoke.
Vibe Killer Act.
No.
If you kill the vibe, you get a fine.
Oh,
You're gonna bankrupt
okay.
Bruce.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
If you
like-
egregiously kill the, it's like something I'm cooking. I don't want to pull out my phone and read out the whole thing to you guys. But
I got you.
we got that, and then we've got the erotic restriction protocol coming up, where it's going to be a curfew up in the north to prevent the spread of syphilis.
Fuck, I
Yes.
fell into some water up there.
That's smart because people love those mountains.
Yep.
So you're going to prevent people
Oh
from
shit, you better get Beric checked
moving
out then.
during certain hours?
Yep.
Okay.
Huh.
All right. How were the interviews yesterday?
Oh yeah, they were really good.
Yeah. I didn't realize till much later, but I was hoping you could come down to we had a huge town hall. It went really
that
well.
was That was horrible, by the way. I'm gonna fucking say it.
The town hall.
The town
No,
hall.
the fucking interview yesterday. I interviewed.
Why is there
Nino, did you
smoke
see
coming
that
out of the
picture I
floor?
sent you?
Oh, should we be? Is Cat Ultra back?
Oh god, that's what I'm worried about.
Who?
The terrorist?
Oh yeah.
We talking
Yeah,
about?
let's go outside.
Okay.
Peels, you know.
Come with me.
Jesus Christ.
I want the judges to have the power to do what the case laws and shit. Faulkner, just for my own sanity, you got what I mean by being able to derive a ruling, right?
Yes.
And not
I
just
mean-
they did something and therefore it's common law, right?
Sure. Like,
Yeah.
I had a case with a bench trial with Al Saab yesterday.
Oh god.
They found 2 guns in his car. One belonged to someone else. One was a Glock. And in my verdict, that was like, while constructive possession is not written down in our state explicitly, we do have Carroll versus United States and Wyoming versus Houghton that references constructive possession and the risk thereof of not utilizing
Yes, yes, shit like that, that to me, that's literally in my mind. Case law is like deriving it on legal basis and because I relate it to what we have in common law today, right? That we took from the U.S. Now, granted, here we're not creating 5-page dossiers on the entire ruling, but something where the full explanation is there, right? And once it's in place, right? Yeah, maybe case law down the line may become something that gets refuted, but we have those avenues, right? But it makes everything live and developing and evolving, and certain case laws might come into play, right? And then it may drive us in a direction. We may 6 months later drive it in a different direction, but
Hey, you need the money.
Okay, easy.
Speaking of, I might have a bounty I need to pay.
Oh shit. Yeah. All right, easy. We should talk, Turner, and then I got to run to a meeting. All right. Appreciate your time, Faulkner.
No problem.
All right. Mumbles, if you want to link up later, I'd love to have a chat with you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I got some people to talk to, and then I'll be available.
Easy. All right. Appreciate you. All right.